One of the biggest challenges that tech companies face these days is being able to differentiate themselves from all of the other competitors and be able to stay top of mind with their customers or with their prospects through what's a relatively long sales cycle. Customers see everything, and to them, everything looks pretty much the same. They see each demo, and each demo claims to be the best, the fastest, the newest, the most incredible features. And the customer looks at that and they're like, everybody's sort of saying the same thing. Who do I believe? Realistically, the way you sort of cross that river is by bringing in other customers' success stories because a customer is most likely to believe another customer, right? I mean, the biggest ask that we get at Inside Fashion is people want to know what are other brands doing? What are other people doing? In fact, we have a quarterly report called Current Situation in Sourcing, which is exactly that. It literally is positioned as this answers the question, what are other brands doing? You can see that how much people like panel discussions, like what we had recently at FashCon, with a group of what you may call peers, right? All similar people doing the same thing, running sourcing offices, discussing problems they have, challenges they're facing, how they're solving it, what they're doing. So this is creating a tremendous amount of credibility. So on your side of things, you want to leverage that. You want to leverage all of those customers that are really happy with your product and that has have solved a specific problem for them. You want real experience, real results, real proof from real people. That's what builds trust. So, how do we do that? Now, a lot of people say, oh, well, we just write up a press release, right? And we talk about the fact that we've just signed this new client and they put in a statement that says how happy they are about working with us. And we talk about how we're happy working with them. But that doesn't really move the needle for another customer. It more or less makes the board of directors feel good, but it's not providing the proof, right, that a customer needs to be able to say, oh, I think that might work for me. So buyers want to see use cases, right? They want to know not just that someone else got this product or is using this software. They want to know how they're using it and they want to hear them talk about it, not just we're using this to give us greater transparency. The fact that you can have a relaxed and informal conversation and they're discussing why they chose it, what's working for them, what they're looking to do next. That makes it very, very real. It's tangible. It's something that the customer listening to it, the prospective buyer can relate to and can start to visualize them doing the same thing. Basically, they want to know what did some other or multiple other companies do, right? How did it work for them? However, buyers are very skeptical. Um, basically, there's so much fake news, there's so much AI generated content that to be able to do this effectively, you have to think from the end of how do we make this really, really authentic? In a sense, you want to create a scenario where your prospective buyers, right, your leads, are feeling like they're what we call a fly on the wall, right? Sort of nobody sees them there in the room, but they're listening to all the conversations that are going on. You can say sort of listening through the keyhole, we used to say, or listening under the door. And they want to be able to hear that real conversation with someone who's already using the product, right? Who's already using your software, your service. And they want to be able to get those deep insights into, well, what exactly did they do? How's it working? What were some of the challenges? Because nothing's ever perfect. So sometimes it gives you more credibility if bring up where it may be a little bit challenging, but overall it's been a good experience kind of thing. That's really, like I say, very important. Like I said before, it's why people like those panel discussions. People get that to some extent. They try to do that in a webinar format, but even then, a webinar, I'm not saying it's not good, but it doesn't feel as real. It's a little more structured. Not that it's bad, but it's a little more structured. What works really, really well is to be able to use a podcast format. A podcast format by nature is authentic. It's not polished, it's not structured, it's not scripted. Um, Usually it's one or more people sitting around talking, discussing, and that makes it feel very authentic. It gives it that fly on the wall feeling. It brings people in. They feel like they're part of the conversation, even though they're only listening to it, right? They're not sitting there, but you feel like it. I mean, think about it the next time you're listening to a podcast. And a podcast can be an audio or a video or both, right? So the podcast format is very authentic. Think, for example, of the Joe Rogan Experience, right? Which is, I don't know if it's still the biggest podcast out there, but it's huge. And it's just this guy sitting there. He's not dressed any fancy way, in this sort of dark, smoky room, and he's got a guest there, and they're just casually chatting, and maybe they got a snack on the table. They're just eating right there in front of the camera, and nothing all fancy. Um, and it has that authentic feeling. It's not designed for the camera. It's just two guys talking about, maybe they're talking about politics, or maybe they're talking about current events, or maybe they're talking about some place they went to. And you feel like when you are watching that or listening to it, you feel that you're actually just hearing them talk. You don't feel like they're making it polished just to be able to look good on camera, because actually they're not. That's the key thing to that particular format. So, customers want to listen and learn from other people's experiences, particularly before they make a big buying decision. I mean, there's a lot riding on any kind of a big capex decision. So nobody wants to make a mistake. They want to make a good choice. And when you hear what other people are doing, as you know, it's that third party validation. Hearing a person's voice builds a connection. You can read their words, and of course, that can be very powerful, but hearing someone speak really builds that closeness. It's an interesting phenomena. It's one of the way. It's part of the reason why in-person sales calls are very effective. But you can't make sales calls on everybody all the time. I mean, you can go to see them, you have a meeting, and then you got to leave. And there's a limit to how often you can come back before you look like a stalker. So, in a competitive market, and let's face it, um, technology, software, very competitive, hyper competitive, you might say. Your golden key is this personalization, right? To be able to have that customer hear your voice, listen to you and your customer speaking. It makes it, like I say, very personalized, very authentic. Pre sales, by listening to you and your customer talk, it builds that all important know, like, and trust. After you've had a sales call with them, it continues to keep the conversation going. It brings them into that conversation. It keeps it going. They can continue to hear about something that they're considering. Now, what we put together is what we call our podcast mini series. What you get is 3 podcasts. Each one focuses on a different customer problem that you solved. So you may have solved multiple problems for the same customer, but you pick one so that the podcast is really focused. And we sit down with that customer and we're just talking. Okay? We say, tell us what you did. Why did you choose this software? How did it work for you? And we're just chatting about their experience, real casual. And that becomes an incredibly powerful podcast and ultimately sales tool that any of your prospects, leads, as new leads come on, can listen to. One topic. Why? Because people are generally thinking about solving a specific problem. So they can dial in to that podcast that talks about that problem. And then there'll be a different podcast with another customer that talks about a different problem, right? So you're able to have basically 3 key problems that you solve in this series. It makes it very focused, very targeted, very authentic. So you're really checking the box on everything. And frankly speaking, we're able to put it together for you because we record remotely. You don't even have to go anywhere. So even better. So you're really able to build an incredibly powerful tool to reach multiple customers anywhere in the world where you need to reach them.